made so much sense because he made this video about Scarface. It had this picture of Scarface and it had like an altar built around it, and it made so much sense. It was so relevant to my high school years because I used to tell my cousin all the time, you remember everybody meaning us, that kids running around and they giving each other these Italian nicknames, and everybody want to be a boss and everybody want to be a Don, and even Master P was putting out albums called The Don, and it's like we always adopt a different culture, or we always adopt to be somebody else, and Scarface really was made to be an idol for us, and looking at him, we desire money and wealth and, killing as if it was of no consequence, and so that's what I was telling you earlier about the doctrine of Balak and Balaam. All this stuff is just fed to us like food, and until we push away from the table, it's gonna be hard to reconnect with the Most High, and that's what they know. That is the whole point, to prevent that.
Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Roots and Trees. Today we have a phenomenal author with us. It is such a privilege and it is such a treat. This is Mr. Uriyah Corry Rooks. He is the author of this. Thank you so much for being here. This is Revelation and Redemption. Oh wow, this is powerful. Wow, how does it feel to be a published author?
Well, it's something that I never thought that I would do, but now that it's manifested, it feels good. I mean, it's hard to describe the feeling you get when you are being used as a vessel to do kingdom work, and so it's a physical reminder that I am a vessel and doing work for the kingdom. And so, I always say kingdom work is perfect works. So I'm glad to be a part of whatever y'all is doing in this day and age.
Let's talk about this awesome book that you've read.
Okay, so the title Revelation and Redemption, I picked it because what's on the inside is most of what I know or that I've learned, I would tell anybody, came by revelation of the Uriyah Corry Rooks, the Holy Spirit. So that's where, and that's what I've shared here with the whole world, is the revelation that the Most High gave me. And so that's where revelation come in at. Now, revelation and redemption, one of the big subjects of my book is the redemption of the Most High Yah, God's people, his chosen, set apart people. So I received a revelation of who me and who my people are, which are the Ephraim, the Hebrews, the Israelites in the Bible, right? And so through that revelation, I also learned about salvation, Torah, the laws, the standards, and commandments of the Most High. And so this is one of the things that he wants all of us to learn. So we ought to be, and most importantly, if this is what I'm claiming, then I know that the duty that come with it is to be a light and to be the salt of the earth, a light to the Gentiles. And so that's what I'm doing by sharing this information, and that I say came back to me by revelation and by y'all teaching me. But in here, I show where his people has also been a cursed people. They've been in and out of captivity, oppression. And I make all efforts to show this. It's one thing for me to tell you we the people of the Most High God, but it's another thing for me to be able to show you using scripture, biblical facts, historical facts, geographical facts, walk you with scriptures, chapters, and verses that show and prove the things that I claim. And also behind that, not just stay stuck on the fact that we're a cursed people, because we're not going to stay a cursed people. There is a promised redemption of the Most High's people. And so that's where the title of redemption comes from. I even walk through the scriptures that, and the prayers and the Psalms that Yah has spoken the redemption of his people. And we know that his word won't come back void. So if he spoke it, it will be. And so that's where you get the title Revelation and Redemption. Now this cat on the front of the cover, the cover is basically showing you the foundation of my walk, my faith, which focus on two things. Galatians chapter 5, I think it's 5 and 23, the fruits of the Spirit. So that's why all the fruits on the front of the book is. These are the fruits of the Spirit, right? Then the soldier, as you can see, is wearing armor. This is taboo. You rarely see a black man in medieval armor. So that was so taboo, first of all. But it's a black man who was covered in the armor of God and is bearing the fruits of the Spirit. I think that is the most relevant image of anything, because it shows what we should be as men anyway, above all. So this black fella on the cover is representative of a Hebrew Israelite who is wearing the armor of God and bearing the fruits of the Spirit.
Is there anything that you would like to share that's been an inspirational part of the book?
Absolutely. So most of our history, the farthest back we can go in history, is that our ancestors, meaning the African Americans and or the Negroes in America, most people only know as far back as they can go is that their ancestors were brought on slave ships, brought here to America, working plantations as slaves, and that's it. The rest of our history is, like I said earlier, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks. But what about before the slave trade? What about our history? What part of Africa? Egypt probably cannot testify to anybody being dragged, kidnapped, put on slave ships, and brought to another country. Ethiopia cannot testify that they were actually the only part of Africa that didn't get colonized. So what part of Africa did our ancestors come from? Well, if you look around the whole world, people are named after the place they come from. Russia has Russians. Chinese come from China. Filipinos come from the Philippines, right? Germans come from Germany. So the Negro in America has received a byword according to Deuteronomy 28, which we know as blacks, nigger, or colored, all these things like that, right? So let me point out a little something. In Africa, in what they call the sub-Saharan Africa, there is a country called Niger. And next to it, there's a country called Nigeria. And what runs through it is the Niger River. And the Niger River runs to what's called the Niger Delta. And all this is right in what's called the Slave Coast. So guess what they call that for? So all these words are the names of countries. So if everybody is named after the place where they come from, then if you got people in the world that the world calls nigger, which evolved to us saying nigger or blacks, then where do these people come from? You can find the name of this place in the book Revelation and Redemption. Also, the Roman word, if you didn't know, the Roman word for black. So if the Romans seen someone that they thought was dark in color or there was Negro featured, they would call them Niger. Remember the guy Simon the Niger in the Bible? Niger, right? This is the Latin Roman word for black. Now, the Spanish word for black is, guess what? Negro. So, all these words that means black describe black people, and these are old words, and all these words are found to where a people in Africa Where is this? So all these countries together make up a region in Africa. And the name of that region, you can find it in my book. The whole way of me introducing where we come from Africa, is using words. Words are so vital and so important in what I do. And so I want to bring another word to give strength to who we are. The word Afro, right? So anybody born in America can be in America. You can be Chinese, white, Mexican, black. Put us all in the room. If we were born here, we all American, right? But if someone speaks specifically to me or you, then they'll say what? Afro-American, right? The word Afro, when you put it in front of anything, usually has a, I guess, Afrocentric definition behind it. It's specifically talking about blacks, right? So that's for people that's born in America. What if we were born in Asia? What would that make us like? I remember I never knew that black people was even in Turkey until I realized about the Afro-Turks. But what about Asia? You familiar with the term Afroasiatic? Okay. So if any point in time in history, we were saturated in the Middle East, meaning we were born there, we were residents of the Middle East, then we would be considered Afroasiatic then, right? If we Afro-Americans here, we would be Afroasiatic there. So in America, the Afro-Americans, like everybody else, speak English, right? But if we are Afroasiatic, meaning if not just Asiatic, but Afroasiatic, then everything up under that term applies to us, right? Do you know what an Afroasiatic language is? Afroasiatic languages are listed, and you can check this on Google. They are Hebrew, Arabic, Hausa, Aramaic. All of these are Afroasiatic languages. So this here is also saying that these languages are of the origin of Afroasiatic people, meaning we don't just fit up under the umbrella of Africa. We have a Middle Eastern origin also, because these are Afroasiatic languages. And in the same region that my book tell you that our ancestors came from, there's also a region called Hausa, H-A-U-S-A, Hausa land. These people also had a Afroasiatic language, which was the language of the Canaanites, a phonetic language which is identical to Hebrew. Revelations 2:14, I think, mentions that the doctrine of Balak and Balaam was causing a stumbling block to Yashael, because they taught them to sacrifice things to idols and sexual immorality and all these things like that. So to that point, the doctrine of Balak and Balaam is something that I believe that the world has learned. And I believe that the world knows and always have known that the bloodline of the Negro goes back to the Ephraim, to the Israelites. And they know that this is how you curse a people. This is how you keep these people in bondage. This is how this people stays the tail and they stay the head. So with that being said, this is why you always see certain things funneled, from my perspective, directly to Negro communities. You always get these gangster rap, gangster music. I think that a lot of the feminizing of the black man has been promoted. Overeating has been promoted. And I think that it has been put where it can be absorbed within the black communities, because as long as we receive the idea of, listen to music that promotes calling out women out our name and being fathers outside the home, to pursue things like cars and money and materialistic things that make us covetous of each other, all these things are a stumbling block to us, because all these things are what Balak and Balaam used.
What was the most shocking realization about history? that hit you and affected your faith and inspired you?
The path of the diaspora. We always been taught that there was a lost tribes of Israel, right? So if they lost, for the most part, it's just these mystic people in the Bible that you don't know who they are. That's how the world will have you thinking. But once you find out that they're us, that they are, and when I say us, I'm talking about the Negro, right? Because there's this thing where I hear a lot of people say that we are saying that all black people are Hebrews. All black people are not the same. There are two different kinds of black people, and that's Hamitic and Shemitic. And the world has taught a lot of people in a way where all black, all melanated, up under one umbrella, Africa. That's it. And because of that, we don't know a whole lot of history beyond the slave trade. All we know is, and this is me talking, all I've ever known and all I've ever heard anybody else know is our ancestors were brought here on ships. We were slaves. After the Civil War, we gained independence, freedom. But that's it. African American history from that point revolved around Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks. That's it. Repetitively. Nothing past slave trade. If you watch any movies, black people are always portrayed in servitude for the most part, and that's it. Or dancing around the pot, cooking somebody like a savage. That's all I've ever seen. There's never a mention of any of our heroes, like any famous generals or famous kings or famous kingdoms. We're just not getting this movie about the homie, the woman king. That's about as far as I can see. The rest of it is imaginary, like Wakanda, Black Panther. But you never hear about the Songhai Empire, which was one of the largest empires in Africa. You never hear about the kings in Mali. Everybody know what a Mandingo is. You always hear about the Mandingos, right? Them cats come out of Mali, and they were some of the, like Mansa Musa was one of the richest kings that ever lived outside of Solomon. He made a pilgrimage across Africa that pretty much, he had so much gold that by the time he crossed the continent, gold was like finding a penny on the ground. He changed the economy because he spent so much gold. He had a brother that actually gave him the throne. His name is Abu Bakr. This guy, 200 years before Columbus sailed the ocean blue, discovered America already. So we never heard about all that. And that's in my book. I talk about these cats, and I talk about a lot of other ones because it's so necessary that we hear about them. It's so necessary that we know about them because it's so necessary that we know that we were greater than what the world portrayed us. Most of those melanated heroes or kings or empires, if they were very impressionable in history, wherever they could, they were given the image of the Greco-Romans. They was always given a Greco-Roman image. And so they would hide the identity of these people, just like I could name a couple bunch of them, but I'll leave some things for you to read about in the book, some things for you to do your own diligence about. But there is a world of history out there containing us. And if you study it, you will be able to separate the different groups of blacks. Like I said, when we say that we are Hebrew or Hebrews, we're saying that we're from a certain bloodline, and that we're not just saying that all blacks are Hebrews. We're saying that we are from a bloodline, a certain bloodline of melanated blacks. And so all these things need to be put where people can see it, understand it, but in a way where they can do their own diligence and research it for themselves, They need to know that Negroes have a Middle Eastern history, a medieval history, because we wore armor and swords too. I didn't even know it was a black cowboy for a long time. And so, you know, we need to put these things where it can be seen and inspire the youth, and they can pursue it, and they can pick up the baton where I left off and other people left off, and dig up more history. And we can learn from history, and we can grow and be stronger from that. So I hope that's what this book does.
Walk me that journey. Tell me, how did we get here to this place where you're producing fruit, and you started off as a Christian? What does that look like?
Like I said, I started out in a AME non-denominational church, and what's funny is it's changed the way that I looked at scriptures as a whole. It's changed the way that I receive the word of God as a whole, because my pastor always taught us that we are Gentiles. Like, he literally said it that way. We are Gentiles. He taught us that the time of the Gentiles is when the Gentiles will be receiving the gospel, and they will be getting saved, and they will be finding salvation. And then when the time of the Gentiles is at an end, salvation go back to the Jews. But at this point, that contradicts everything. So now I'm looking at everything from a whole total point of view. I'm not looking at, the word of God from the eyes of a Gentile anymore. I'm reading it from the point of view of, I am Hebrew. I am a Hebrew. So, and also, the scriptures say that salvation is of the Yehudi, the Jews. And a lot of people think that means that it's only for the Jews. But if you want my perspective, that's just to say that Yah's ultimate plan is to use us to bring salvation to the rest of the world. Going back to the whole being a light and being the salt of the earth, every time he do something big, he always uses people. It was always in us. And so that's why I said it's important for us to know that we are Hebrew, because I believe before it's all over, if we are to see another tribulation, it might put us in a situation where we have no choice but to call on the Most High God. We might be the voice that brings the return of Mashiach, the return of Christ. And so, but it's going to ultimately be like this awakening is going on now, with us finding out who we are, us changing our culture, the way we talk, the way we dress, the way we eat, getting a new understanding of the word, stronger understanding, speaking to people in love, directly in love. This will be the way that we lead people back to the Most High. This will be the way that fulfills that purpose that I said that the Ivri has. And this will be ultimately, from my perspective, the Most High Yah's plan from the beginning. Because, his word won't come back void, right? A lot of people want to speak on a spiritual Israel or a replacement theology or whatever, but when Yah said his word, he said these things will come about of a natural Israel. So I have to roll with that, what he say. And with that point,
throughout the scriptures is love. What is love to you? How do you define it?
We're not talking about like love that humans have, right? We're talking about like love according to God's definition, right? So a lot of people will tell you that they love Yah. They will tell you that they love God. But they'll tell you with the understanding about love according to like the love they got for their children, the love they got for their parents, the love they got for their spouse, that type of love. But not knowing that Yah has a spiritual definition for love, and the point where he says, if you love me, keep my commandments. So a lot of people don't realize that if they live in their life the way they want to and not within the will of the Most High God, then you are not showing that you love the Most High Yah, living outside his commandments. Another thing is, love is, and I would never go and condemn or preach at somebody for, just being a homosexual. But if they came and they asked me, do you think my lifestyle is, will send me to hell? Then love is, regardless of how they take it, regardless of what their feelings is, look them in their eye and say, man, your lifestyle will get you what's called the second death, which is fire and brimstone. You have to, that is love, to tell them the one thing that will be a soul-saving comment. That's love. Regardless of how they feel, regardless of how the world take it, or what the world say, well, your perception is this, or, everybody, you don't feel that way, or, it's not nothing that I'm saying. This is just what's coming up out of the scripture. If you ask me, I'll tell you, but I won't just come and condemn you. But love is telling you straightforward. You can even say that love don't always sound good, don't always look good, but it has your best interest. I say that. And we know that love is the fulfillment of the law. The person responds, the word canonized is a word that, if you ask me, came from a people that was considered heathen at one time. So, at what point did the people that were considered heathens determine what books you should and should not read? When, if you read in the book of Joshua, he himself says, are not these things written in the book of Jasher? I think it was Jude that quoted Enoch, right? And the same thing he quoted in Enoch, you find it in the book of Enoch. So, yeah, to me, absolutely. As I said earlier, Maccabees is one of my favorite books, and everything about it is historically correct, and it lines up with the prophecy of Daniel. So, this gives this manifests truth in Daniel's prophecy, that he is a true prophet, because historically, everything that he prophesies, Alexander the Great did it, and it's written about in the book of Maccabees. So yeah, I have received truth in these historical books, these extrabiblical books, and I will make this point right here. If we can go out and buy a book written by Billy Graham, or we can buy a book written by T.D. Jakes and all these preachers and read those and receive whatever they write, then how can we not go and read a book that's written by the men, that is referred to us by men of God like Joshua? It only makes sense to go with the books that's referred by men of God, right?
Book?
My favorite book?
Yeah.
The Maccabees. That's one of my favorite books. I love the book of the Maccabees. 1 and 2. And I love the works of Josephus. And I'm still reading on it, but the works of Josephus is a great work. It's actually been an inspiration on my book. And he also inspired me a way, a moral way to write it. I kind of patterned after him when he said that he meticulously wrote these things because he wanted for the generations to receive it in truth. He said he didn't rush nothing. And he was careful about every detail. And I look at Josephus no different than I look at Jeremiah or Nehemiah. He might be a what they call it, extrabiblical book, like outside the Bible, but he is an eyewitness to the things that has occurred within Jerusalem, and he is an eyewitness to the things that was prophesied by the Messiah. You know, the Messiah prophesied the burning of the temple, and he prophesied about Jerusalem being surrounded by armies, and Josephus is an eyewitness to it all because he was a general in a war where all this occurred in the war of 70 AD. Can't get no better than that. Remember the story about David and the lion's den? David explained how he wasn't afraid of the giant because he had already had to kill a lion and a wolf or a bear, and all of this prepared him to take on this giant, right? So I think a lot of things in our life we get prepared for it, because I was always into, like, as a little boy, into swords and medieval stuff, and I liked the metal and gold and silver and all this stuff from biblical times, right? So that aroused a keen interest in me, you know, to be studying into the past and looking into those type of cultures and environments. So it was so easy for me to study and follow up on it because I was already interested in it. But when it was revealed that this had a lot to do with my history, where I come from, and the people that are really me, I really had to pursue it. You know, like prey. I went after it, and it just made it easy. I used to teach Bible study, right? So COVID closed down the churches, as a lot of y'all already know. But these Bible study topics were steady coming to me, you know. The Most High was still teaching me, and I'm z's about sharing what I learned. And so therefore, all those Bible study topics that I never got to teach and when I was in the church, I took them and I put them in this book. So a big portion of this book is not just about being an Israelite or the curses or, you know, all those type of things there, but a big portion of this book actually is Bible study topics. So I'm hitting on topics like the fruits of the Spirit, the arm of God, love, the second death, coming to the throne of God, who does prayers, whose prayers get answered, how to be blessed. There's also a session where I share unfinished poetry, which my sister called them stanzas, and even songs that I started and didn't finish. I shared all that with you. Everything within my walk, for the most part, I shared within this book. And so anybody who might be trying to get a clear understanding of certain topics that's in the Bible, they might be in here, because I do put a lot of my Bible study topics up in here. And there's also devotionals in there as well. So there's a lot of things that can also help you throughout your walk as a everyday born again believer. And ahead of time, I appreciate your support. I'm glad you gave me your ears. For those who have ears to hear and eyes to see, and may y'all bless you all. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Shalom, shalom.